What's up, everybody? Welcome to the stream. Hope everyone's having a wonderful day. It's a little weird today because this is the fifth video that I've recorded this week. Lots going on this week. And right after this stream, I have another video. It's going to be the sixth all in 1 week. A lot going on. It's a ton of fun though. And I appreciate you guys as you jump into the live stream here today. So today we are doing another sample library review. This is a new library from 8Dio. A lot of you love 8Dio libraries as I do. And this is a version 2 of the Century Ensemble Brass series. Now, the Century series is both a string series and a brass series. And the brass is broken into an ensembles library and a solos library. So the ensemble only has 3 instruments represented. It's trumpets, horns, and trombones, but we have different sizes of these ensembles, and they're a lot of fun to play around with. And I would argue that these are at the same level, if not a little bit higher, than Cinesample's Cinebrass, which is saying something because those are some really stellar samples. And at some point during this stream, I'm going to do a little battle between them to see when you might use one over the other, because I do think there are unique purposes for each, and I don't think you need to just write off one or the other. So it's going to be a fun part of today. For today, we're going to be using this new Century, as they're calling them, the new Century Ensemble Brass, and we're going to try to write a live composition today over the next hour or so. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I want to feature these brass instruments because they're really powerful and really warm. And I think that's what really separates this ensemble from, say, Cinebrass. So if you want to check out more about this, of course, you can go to 8dio.com and check out the new Century Ensemble Brass. And just keep in mind that really with any brass libraries, you kind of get what you pay for. There are a lot of cheap brass libraries that just don't sound super real, and it's really hard to find good ones. So I'm really excited to share this with you guys today. And specifically, the different ensemble sizes are what I think really separate this from the rest of the pack. So let's pop over here to a blank Cubase session where I have each of the patches loaded. And as you can see, it's not a large library, and yet this is a 50 gigabyte sample library. It's huge because each of these samples has every possible articulation baked in. And what's really cool is each of these also represents the different sizes that you might want when writing orchestral music. So for example, I'm going to show you the interface here, and let's clean it up a little bit. So here is the basic interface where we just have, for example, 4 trumpets. And as you can see, you can actually assign your own key switches to any of these slots, which is pretty cool. I haven't seen that before. And you can double click on this first patch and you can change to any of these articulations. And one of the cool parts about this is because this is a contact patch, which all 8Dio libraries are, everything is already purged. So this sample right now is super small. So even though there's 50 gigabytes worth of data that can be loaded across these patches, if you take a close look here, I'm only using 10 megabytes. That's it for this one patch at this one moment. Now you can certainly close that out and you can load up to 10 different, can I count? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's 10 slots that you can trigger in really anywhere on the keyboard, or perhaps you have another MIDI controller device that you want to use, like an iPad or a mixer, whatever. You can push those buttons and just switch between all the different articulations on the fly. Now, my play style is I like to just have one patch loaded for a particular sound. Like this could be the trumpets ensemble size of 4 Staccatissimo patch, and then I'd probably just duplicate it into a new track and load a legato patch or whatever I want for that moment. That's my preferred writing style, but I love that they give the option that you can mix and match these however you wish. And of course, if you want to create your own multis, by using the Omni MIDI channel up here, which I currently have in Contact. I could stack all these into one, and then as I push one key on my keyboard, it could trigger all of those. So that's a lot of fun. And of course, with every 8DO library, probably one of the most useful features is the microphone placement. So let's just play around for a minute just to give a little bit of a demo here. So the patch I will most definitely be using the most is the legato patch for the trumpets. Which is such a beautiful, beautiful sound. Love that sound. And so what I would probably do is, instead of using the mixed microphone placement, I'm going to turn on the close. Sounds like this. Let's mix in some decatri, maybe a little bit less. And I typically use 2 mics, not 3, because as you can see, the memory is already starting to jack up quite a bit. It's already at 175 megabytes, even though we've only added 2 microphones versus 1. And from there, I'd probably add my own reverb to the entire session, and that way all of my plugins are sharing one unique reverb for the orchestral hall, right? What I've noticed right off the bat is this is a very soft library. Like, this is what they're considering fortissimo for 4 trumpets. I've worked with live orchestras, and if you were to ask 4 trumpets to play as loud as they can, it's gonna feel a lot louder than that, which is okay. I don't think every library needs to serve every purpose. So if you were to compare that to, let's go ahead and do it. I said I'd do it. Let's open up Cinebrass, just to kind of show the difference here. So if I open up some Cinebrass trumpets, let's scroll down and grab some just so we do a little side-by-side comparison. So let's grab their trumpet ensemble, which they call fortissimo here. So much louder and beefier, but it's also not a very clean legato. That's back to the 8DO. I definitely prefer the 8DO for legato and for more beautiful passages, and that's what we're going to be using for today, especially when you get down to the softer dynamic. Love that. It's really, really expressive. And I don't tend to mess much with the expression wheel, but it is there. Seems more like a volume knob to me, whereas the dynamics is an actual tonal shift of bright to warm. Kind of like that, which you'd expect from any library. A couple other articulations here that are probably super useful for trumpets. I love how they have this divided, each of the patches. They have a core section up top, which are all your main articulations. But on the bottom, they have mutes, the Harmon mutes. I think that's super cool. So for each of these instruments, there's not a lot of libraries I know of that have mutes. So I think that's really useful, especially for jazz type music. But that's not really my style, so I don't really care about those features down there, but it is there if you like that kind of thing. But up top, probably the most useful features for me are going to be legato and fanfare shorts. So these are even shorter than staccatissimo. And this is more for like John Williams-esque. That kind of thing, just super short. But they even have in here triple tonguing and double tonguing, which is really important for playing even faster than that. So triple tongue. I love how that's actually tempo synced. So right now I'm at 120 beats per minute in my Cubase session. So what that means is it's going to match up with it. So let's try 150 beats per minute. Let's try, I don't know, 220. It's a really useful feature. Double tonguing sounds like this. At any point, if you have the knobs available, they will light up down here. So let's find something that actually does have them light up. So the release tail, for example, this is really cool for the arcs. So if you want to play really long, intense notes at the end of a passage or something, notice if I let go, the aftertouch sample that triggers, you can actually change when it triggers the release tail. So obviously if I go to zero, it'll release immediately. If I go really long, has an extra, I don't know, half of a second. So very, very useful for really every purpose. Now you could get into the nitty gritty here and you could, trigger all day between your different samples. But for me, writing music is all about choosing one patch that really solves the problem of that moment and then switching to a different patch as needed. So I'm going to switch to legato because for me, that's really where the meat of a good library is. So I really like that one right there. And I do want to point out a very interesting note here that anytime a library gives you multiple sizes, it's for a reason. So if you were going to play with a real orchestra 4 notes by trumpets, and you have 4 trumpet players, then what you would do is you would split up those 2 notes per instrument player, right? So what you'd have is 2 players play 1 note, 2 players play 1 note. So that's why we have patches like trumpets 2, which it's obviously a much smaller sound because it's only 2 people playing, but it's going to allow us to write music that actually sounds real. So if I were to, for example, call this trumpets 2, and we'll just, for simplicity, call it A, we'll call the next one B. So if I were to just write a little, I don't know, let's set our tempo to something kind of slowish, like 90. Let's put it in. I'm going to show you some harmony here. Now let's do the same thing, but with the second ensemble size of 2. So the B, let's do another legato on top of that, as if 4 players are playing at the same time. Polyphony. Whatever, right? So now it's a way more realistic sound than if I were to combine these 2 things together. Let's try this out. If I were to combine those things together and then put them on a trumpet 4, listen to how unrealistic it sounds. Well, I guess it won't because it's legato, but the idea is, let's see, if we were to, instead of do that, we do a sustain patch. Something like this. It's just not a great way to write music. So anytime you can do an A and a B and split things up in the same way that instead of doing a polyphony, so a chord inside a 12 horn ensemble, you'd want to do 2 6 horns, or if you want to sound like 4 horns, you do 2 and 2. So anytime you have a chord or multiple notes, you want to try splitting it among smaller sections. That way it sounds more realistic, because there's nothing faker than having a 24 horn ensemble or a 30, what would that be, a 32 horn ensemble. That's not real. You don't hear that in real life. So it's very unbalanced and it ruins your mix. So that's just a little hint. That's why we have these types of libraries, to really get super deep into writing for brass. So let's move on to the horns, because the horns are just beautiful. It's a very huge sound. So if you didn't want horns 12, like I was mentioning earlier, it might be a good idea to load up 2 patches of horn 6. I think they're beautiful samples. Now the horn's a little bit different because you have more articulations available in that lower range, like flutter tongues. Such a cool patch. And then, of course, we expect rips from horns. Although they have descending and ascending rips. That's a big deal. And all the others you expect, but with mutes on. So like rips with mutes on. I think that's super cool because you don't have libraries with a lot of rips. And I think what makes this so interesting versus something like East-West Play or even Cinebrass is it's all in one patch. You can just pull up the ensemble size you need for the occasion and then use it for the entire track and just switch between the articulations as you need. Or of course, if you need multiple, you can just copy it out. But that's probably my favorite part of this whole thing is the memory size is still super low. This is the future of sampling, guys. Having everything in one patch and then duplicating it as many times as you need, but starting the patch out purged. So notice how the memory keeps increasing as I change patches because it's loading them into the sample bank memory. So if I only want to use legato after, trying everything out, then what I would do is go back up here and I can go to purge. So I can go to the purge of that sample, purge all samples. Now it's back down to 0. That's so good. And that's without anything. It's just out of the box. I always like to hear things right out of the box sound good. And that was only 5 megabytes worth of information. Isn't that crazy? So I already feel like I'm going to be using lots of horn 6. So I'm going to create 2 of those. And within any AW, you can just duplicate the channel. Give it a second. And with my luck, sometimes when I hit duplicate, I'm also in the middle of an autosave, which I have loaded like every 5 minutes. So that's just part of taking care of your sessions, never losing information. Horns 2, it's still worth playing here. Obviously a much smaller patch. But if you think about it, if you have an ensemble of 6 horns, which is pretty typical, a horns 2 ensemble is actually really important because if you're going to play a staccato or a staccatissimo patch like I'm doing right now, then you need to be very careful to, if you're playing a triads, as I'm doing right now, 3 notes. Let's see if we can get some more volume out of this with 2 different mics. Notice how I'm playing 3 notes, so obviously that would equate to 6 horns playing in real life. Sounds really, really good. Now notice that's not a super bright and biting horn sound. This is actually a more typical horn sound you'd get in an orchestra because, or even the fanfare shorts, which is probably a little bit bitier. So super usable stuff here. I love it. Let's go back to legato because I feel like that's going to be my go-to. And then, of course, last but not least, we have trombones, and it's only 3 trombones, but that's very typical in an orchestra as well. And trombones don't usually do harmonies. It's usually just unison. So whatever you choose here, it's going to make sense. They're definitely going for a realistic, more of a filmic sound, or even like a cinematic game sequence type sound, modern scoring. They're not going for the over-the-top. And I find that Cinebrass, while really cool, Cinebrass has a tendency to focus more on the trailer-esque sound with the big monster low brass, wah, 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 like the Brahms kind of sound. But this is definitely going for an orchestral. I think that's why they call it the Century Brass series, just like the Century strings. They're going for more of a classical sound, very much like Spitfire and their BBC orchestra. It's a very classical sound, very John Williams and Danny Elfman, and any kind of really deep orchestration type of music, which if you don't have that in your palette, this is a great way to get that. So let's change that as well. Let's change that to a legato, because I feel like that's always a good starting spot. And you will notice that there is no tuba in this assortment. So that's what I would consider to be the only downfall to this library, but also the incentive to go and look at the solo brass series, which I will be reviewing here shortly. Within the next couple weeks, I'm going to take a look at the solo brass series as well. So to really have a rounded brass template, you also need to add a tuba. Thankfully, if you're on a budget and you need something really quick, I would look at either just getting the solo tuba by itself, which is $48 from 8Dio if you want to have everything recorded in the same hall, or if you want something a little bit of a cheaper option, which will work just fine, you can grab the Chapman tuba, which comes with the Chapman trumpet from Embertone. It's only $30, and I love that solo trumpet so much. I'm really excited to share the 8Dio solo brass with you soon, but I don't even want to pretend like it's here, because I want to show you what I would encourage you to do in your situation. It's a solid tuba, and in orchestra, you only get one tuba. If you're going to write in an orchestral style. So what I want to do is, let's try writing some music. And there is a question in the audience I want to address really quick. It's from Noble, who says, Stephen, do you have any tips on transitioning from traditional notation to a DAW? Is it best to sequence or record? I find that I prefer my tracks that use notation. I think it just totally depends on your writing style and what works best for you. I think everyone's different in that regard. I write better and faster music from a DAW. If you're used to notation, then I would start with notation, convert it into MIDI, and then drag it in to a DAW session, and then attach all the different sounds to it. But I've done it both ways, and I find that this is significantly faster, as you're about to find out. As I sit down and write a piece of music, I can do it live. I can do it very quickly, and with deadlines that we face as composers, you obviously don't have time to sit down and notate. I only notate if I know a live player will be playing it, a live orchestra, a live brass ensemble, whatever. Because then I think it is worth taking the extra time to get all the articulations right and everything. But anyway, what did I have this guy open for? Okay, so that's my tuba. We're gonna call that's the Embertone Chapman tuba. So check that out when you get a chance. And what I want to do before I start writing music is I want to pop over to my mixer, and I want to make sure that we have a nice 2C Aether plugin. So I'm going to create a new track. This is super easy to do within Cubase. And I'm just going to call it Reverb. So it's a new channel. I'm going to set it to an orchestral hall. Let's do 20%. I like Music Hall 2. And that's 2C Aether by 2C Audio. And in order to hear everything, I need to go down to, I need to turn on the Q Link button, which just means everything I'm about to select will move together. Go to my routing and turn them all as an output into the effects channel, which is the reverb channel. Turn the Q Link off, and then we're gonna write some music. So now every time I play any of my instruments, such as the trumpets, there's now a beautiful reverb. Here's it without the reverb. And then back with the reverb. So brass is an interesting beast, because brass either functions as a melodic force. I guess there's three functions. It's either a melodic force where it's these beautiful legato melodies, which is my favorite thing to do. The second route is you can do large chords, harmony, big thick chords, mainly horns. And then the third way is to do short notes that are harmony, that kind of drive the piece of music. I'm much more of a melodic composer, so I'm going to go the melodic route and then go from there. So I like to have some kind of bed on the back burner just to do something around and with. So what I'm going to do is, one of my composing shortcuts is to use, real quick, let me hide this so we can have more real estate. Go to my visibility here. One of the cool things about Cubase is you can hide tracks, so you don't have to look at them anymore and be distracted, but they don't get rid of them. It doesn't delete them. I'm going to open up one of my Sonokinetic libraries to just get a palette to write with. Sonokinetic, I'm not sponsored by them, but this is, I just love their libraries when it comes to just getting some ideas to write around. So let's open, let me sort my folders here. There we go. Let's get out Grosso, which is their large ensembles in 12/8 time. And I want to get out their strings just to get something in the background for us to put some brass on top of. That's going to sound really beautiful. I also love that it's already recorded in 12/8 time. It's a great way to get things started. So in here in my session, I'm going to make sure this is in 12/8 time. And I'm probably going to choose a slower tempo. And I'm listening to my click track right now. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and, or you could say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I want to make sure this is something we're not going to get bored with. Let's go a little bit faster. Bum ba da bum ba da 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 bum ba dum bum ba da dum, something like that. Actually, I kind of like that tempo a lot. Let's just stick with 90. That's fine. Let's find something that kind of gives that adventurous spirit. So these are all string patches, and kind of like that. A little fast, actually. Pretty wild, all the cool things you can do with this. Let's choose some different sounds. I like that a lot. Super, super cool stuff. I'll get some of this run. Like that. You can hear some horns on top of that. So here we go. Oh. Let's try. That's pretty good. Let me do one more pass of that. Yeah, these phrase libraries are ridiculously cool. But you gotta fiddle with them a little bit. Yikes, I forgot to hold my chord. But I'll be going for a G major there. So let's do one more pass of that. What I think I'm going to do as well, phrase-based libraries are really cool, but you got to be careful not to kind of lose your mind while doing it, as I tend to do. There we go. Cubase has this weird MIDI window thing where you have to have a MIDI track available to load it. Nah, it kind of gets annoying. But yeah, this is grosso strings. I want to pick a second phrase on my second note, just so we have a little bit more to work with here. Let's do... That's cool. So you could pick all the different ranges. That's why it sounds so real, because it is real. So here's the second patch. So we're doing this, right? I think maybe this is too much. Yeah, it's gonna be really cool. Let's do it. I can do this. I can do this. I'm going to do an A and a B section. I also love that they had that little release sample. Dun, 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 dun. The way it all kind of fills out. So all I'm going to do is go into the MIDI here. Just quantize it perfectly on the grid. That way nothing gets chopped off. And there we go. We have all my chords set. Looks really cool. I even have a little tail there off the 10th bar. That way, good to go. So now we get to do the fun stuff with the brass. So... do not like that patch. That's a sustained patch instead of legato. That's why it sounds like that. So let's try. Like that. Let's try it out. Get my dang chords. So if we were in a C major, so I'm going to take all of my chords and I'm going to go down 2 half steps so that they will fit the B flat brass. I always write in B flat for brass because that's their best key. Yeah, there's some chatter in the live chat talking about how there's a moral dilemma you might feel when using phrase-based patches, but I think they create great beds. I don't use them all the time, but I think they're great for different uses. Here we go. You know, it's very funny. I don't want to detract too much from the stream, but something I realized recently about my writing style is I write in an octatonic scale. Isn't that crazy? It's the harmonic language that I secretly have grown up with my entire life, listening to a lot of video game composers, listening to a lot of Stravinsky, listening to a lot of Bartók from the classical world. And it's just a style I understand, but never knew how to vocalize that's the way that I write. But those chords right there are totally weird, but melodically it makes sense to me because I'm using an even relationship across the 12 notes. Not quite 12-tone row, which is where you only use every note once before you repeat. But for me, melodically, I like to stretch half steps. So, that kind of thing, because I'm literally shifting scales by a half step every time, which is really weird. And I never knew why I did that, but that's just how my brain goes. Guys see what I'm talking about with the harmonies and how interesting that becomes when I split my 12 horns into two sections of 6, an A and a B section. That's so cool. It gives you such power and control over. That's where the control comes in, is in the melody and in the harmonies you're choosing, right? And I love that it's not overpowering. I don't feel like I'm fighting the mix at all. I haven't even touched the mix actually, because yes, if that was a solo, horn line, like if I had just done that in the 12 horns, then it might need some bumping in the volume, but I'm about to do harmonies, so I don't want to overpower it. And if I want to do some trumpets on top of that, which I likely will in a second, I want to keep the vibe. And yes, thanks Robin for mentioning that there's some awesome sci-fi vibes here. Yeah, I love sci-fi. I really, really do. This reminds me of who did it? I'm gonna think of his name in a second. Oh my gosh, what is it called? It's a Netflix series. Journey to the Center of Earth, but Lost in Space. But the new composer for that. I know his name and I'm blanking, but this kind of reminds me of that vibe. I don't like my G7 chord. Also think this is a little too fast. Let's go to 76. There it is. Ooh, I'm getting goosebumps. This is good. Yeah. I gotta find a better that line. It's the wrong chord. Because my brain is about to melt. Let's grab a piano. I don't care what. Keyscape is always my little default piano here, just to brainstorm. Alright, cool. So this is just for me to compose real quickly. Gather my thoughts. We did a chromatic immediate, didn't we? So we did. I thought we did. I guess we did C minor. Wow, I can't even use my brain right now. There it is. What's interesting is G7 was the correct chord. I was just transposing incorrectly. So this should be a G7. And now everything should work. Yay! Yeah, that's it. No, no. Yeah, these horns are so good. I don't know, I kind of like the original. Cool. You guys like it so far? It's simple, but simple could be good. And while I'm at it, I'm going to get some tuba to give it the proper... If I can figure out what the heck chords I'm playing. So that's a G flat major. E flat minor. G flat major. Back to B flat. Star Wars, anybody? Okay. Cool. So let's record some tuba. Because, you know, tuba. Here we go. missed one note, and it was the E flat. And you can say all day that you might not feel great about using, pre-recorded phrases, and if you don't use them. But if the client still pays you for it, just saying. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. I mean, it's the same thing as using samples, actual samples, like vocal samples and all sorts of things. Some high notes for trumpets. Let's make a marker so I know where that's at. It's the B section. Create a marker track so we can see our markers. Let me lighten that up a little bit. Cool. That'll help. That way this right here could be the, let's not close out Cubase. That would not be a good decision. Let's do quick A section. Pretty simple track. But this would be like a title, main titles for a sci-fi show or something. Mikey, thanks for asking. Who they say sounds nice, but what do you think about that versus Cinebrass? I did a little small Cinebrass comparison earlier in the video. If you want to check that out, rewind. I think I prefer this more, but Cinebrass has a more trailer sound. It's very, very bright and heavy. It's a little bit unrealistic in its sampling. This is meant to be super realistic, like a real orchestra. That needs like a crescendo of some sort. That kind of thing. So I think in this instance, I'll be fine with just doing some legatos. So I'm going to hide, unless I need them later, I'm going to hide those tracks. Let me hide the two horns. I don't even use trombones. That's why it feels a little bit weak. I like the trumpets as a solo line, as a melodic line. But I'd like to double that, and we'll just call it 4 legato. Let's get either some triple tonguing. For now, I'm just going to say fast. But we need something here. We have all the patches in the universe here, so we can surely find something. Like that. Sounds a little fake. And yes, Mikey, the grosso strings in the background, those are some basically ostinato style patches that you can run around some chords. Come on, might as well go all the way with sci-fi. Let's grab the dark score piano. That's my favorite ethereal. I suppose we should do trombones first. Let's do it. Let's get them in. Starts on a B flat. Let's do it. Experiment. I feel like we can do 2 sets of 3 and be a-okay. So I am going to do a 3A and 3B where we do them in octaves just to help fill out this space. So let's do 1 pass and then just duplicate it and change the octaves. I think that'd be a good idea. So the 3B will be the low octaves. Here we go. So that's fun. Not sold on that actually. I still want to hear what it sounds like though. If we were to double, if we were to take, the trombones here and then go here and double, but then pop the octave up. Let's just quantize that so they're at least even. Not sure. Let's find out. I feel like trombones in this context would fit better if we were, if we already had horn chords in the background. They're just kind of a lower horn, essentially. I'm thinking actually to try to match. Let's get rid of the 3A, 3B. It was a nice little experiment. Let's just do short notes. Bum, 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 ba-ga-da-dum, and do our best to match it with the strings. I'm going to map expression to my mod wheel. Kind of like that to help fit those together. Let's try that out. think it's a better use. I might not even use trombones for the first part. I'm very undecided here. But I like how those match. Dun, 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 dun. Right. I think it works right there. I don't want to get too caught in the weeds here. I think that'd be the best use there. Cool. I think we're off to a great start here. Let's see what else we can do in about 10 minutes and we'll wrap it up. I want to add some percussion, of course, and I had the idea of adding the piano. It's way too loud. Let's get that in. Help supplement some of these brass. The brass by themselves are fantastic for sure. Helps a lot, adds a lot of weight. That's just an orchestration thing. Just helps to get them in there. Which makes you want to turn up the strings a little bit just to help them fit more. And I think it's more of an EQ thing than anything. Let's pop over just for a second to this screen. Let's pop open Fab Filter, Pro Q, favorite EQ. Just give them a little bit more juice by stripping away some things. All right, we definitely gotta get some orchestral percussion up in here. I'm gonna grab, where are you at? I'm gonna grab, yeah, I think palette would be a good place to go today. Let's just grab some orchestral percussion. I don't want overly epic, I want actual orchestral. Kind of like that. Awesome patch there. Let's get them in. Sounds good for the second half. Cool. And I will go ahead and lob off the edge of the grosso so it does end on the same time. Cool. Starting to sound like some good music now. All over the place. Oh, whoops. All right. Some good stuff. All right, cool. So I think for the first 2 bars, copy and paste some of that. Kind of like that. Great little combo there for sure. Try it one more time. I think we're about ready to wrap this thing up. That's so cool. All right, let's finish this little demo up. Let's get that trumpet in there. Something like that. Lots of half steps. There it is. You hear how these are much more subdued trumpets. They're not like over the top in your face, which I kind of like a lot more. More musical to me. Take that. I want to add a second horn part there since we have all that queued up and ready to go. Let's take, I guess I'm not going to do the fast, that's fine. It's good to experiment, try stuff. Zimmery, like half step. So I know it's super weird, but that's the idea. It's supposed to kind of, not everything's okay. Like that, a little counter melody. That harmony is so important. That's cool. These are not quantized, that's why it's a little bit off. So just for fun, as we wrap this up, I think I didn't use the 12 horns at all because they were too big. But I wanted to listen to just the brass. I think that's half the fun here, don't you? Where are you at? There we go. For some reason, it looks like it's not solo, but it is. Here's just the brass. We're like seconds away from getting this thing accurate. Get the right note. Cool. See, my trouble is I didn't quantize stuff before. There we go. Cool. All right, last but not least, let's get that trombone. Must be a mod wheel thing. Don't think it goes that low. That's okay. All right, so cool. That's all the time we have for today, but thank you guys so much for being a part of this stream. Before I play the final track, there's one last element I like to do with any mix, and that's add ozone on the end. So what I do is I go to my master channel, that Voxingo recorder plugins, just so that you can hear it during the stream. I'm going to add an ozone mastering suite. What this does is it essentially just kind of livens up the mix quite a bit. You can use presets if you like. I like to use anything that kind of widens the mix. So let's try enhanced stereo image. It'll help it feel a bit more wider. Let's take the default there, but let's go to the maximizer, make it an IRC4, which is the most modern one, and just a little bit of a threshold, so a little 1 dB boost. And if we need to change something, we can, but let's just listen to a little bit of the track and tweak it if we need to. pretty cool, but unfortunately it feels still a little bit too much. It sounds too compressed to my ear. So I think it's the EQ. So I want to take analog warmth, will probably be a really good one there. And I want to do one more thing. I want to add some noise. It's like orchestral noise. Dang, what's the name of the plugin? I have way too many plugins. It's a good problem, I guess. Oh, I really want to remember what it's called. It's pretty bad when you can't remember what something's called. It is Kramer tape. That's the name of it. Found it. It's a tape analog. It's a synthetic noise. You'll hear it if I turn it on. That's at max volume. You don't want that. But what it does is it adds a little bit of realism by making it sound like a live orchestra was recorded. You just kind of put it a very small amount to where you can barely hear it. Right about there. Just leave it in the background. And then once it goes through ozone, it has this beautiful effect of kind of amplifying it. You can kind of see it right there. The little fuzzies dancing around. It's the noise. So let's see what it sounds like if we add that in. And of course, change the EQ to be a little bit more bass heavy, a little bit less high. It's so close, so close. It did what I wanted it to. I don't know, let's keep playing. Probably that, subtle mid-range. So I didn't think I was going to need this, but I'm going to, real quick, as we close the stream down in ozone, I think we need a compression dynamics. We'll put it right there after the EQ. Nothing crazy, but it's a little too much happening right now. So let's do enhanced mid-range or gentle dynamics. One of those. Let's play around. Find a good loud section. Amazing. It's so close, guys. Something really weird happening with the compression of the perk, of all things, which is causing the whole thing to derail the train, but dang, it's sounding good. So the soft section's amazing. It's right there when it gets loud. There it is. Awesome. Let's pop over to my right screen. All right, guys, thank you so much for being a part of this stream. So what I'm going to do as we close out here, this review for 8Do's Century, the new Century Brass Ensemble. I'm going to play this 2 times. First time through, I'm going to play the track with just the brass playing. And the second time through, I'm going to play it with all the plugins on, everything, all the bells and whistles with all the instruments. So first things first, just to show you how this works, I'm going to turn off all the extras and just solo the brass instruments, which are these guys right here. I'm not even going to put the tuba in there because the tuba was not part of the original ensemble. And we're going to play that through. So let's listen to just that part. Here we go. All right, now the final playthrough, I'm going to play everything in its full form, nothing soloed out. With all the plugins, including the Kramer tape, including the Ozone, which had a few little mastering things at the end, and the reverb, the 2C Aether reverb. So let's take a look at the final track. I'd love a fancy demo title from you guys in the comments, if you don't mind. But here we are. Enjoy. Thank you guys for being a part, and I'll see you next time.